The Fairy Captive. Ian Roy was a fearless and wise man who lived in Abernethy. He had more than a little knowledge of charms, and he knew how to protect himself from the supernatural. In fact, he took great delight in thwarting those who used magic for mischief. One calm, starry night, when Ian was out bringing in the cattle, he heard a shrill wind nearby. This was unusual for such a still night, but even more so as the sound was mingled with the chatter of little voices. Ian realised that this must be a company of fairies. No doubt they were up to no good if they'd hidden themselves in such a way. As the noise of the wind got nearer, Ian could also hear a low sobbing sound in between the fairy laughter. He immediately threw his blue bonnet into the wind and said, "What is mine is thine, and what is thine is now mine." The fairies were caught unaware and had to give in to Ian's demand. They took Ian's cap and gave him what they carried, a beautiful lady who wept and wept with worry. The lady spoke no Gaelic, and Ian could only speak a little English. Even so, he managed to calm her down and let her know she'd been rescued. Ian brought the lady home to his wife and family, and his hospitality is in a Highlander's blood as much as breathing itself. They made her welcome and treated her as though she was one of their own. As the days passed, they tried to talk to her with the little English they had, but it soon became clear she was living in a dreamlike state. "The little people have bewitched her," Ian's wife would say. This seemed to be true, as whenever they asked the lady about her past, her mind suddenly became cloudy. Years went by, and the lady settled into Ian's family as though she'd always been there. She even picked up some Gaelic, though with a bit of an English accent. It was a time when a new king took the throne. One of his commands was that new roads be made throughout the Highlands. This was not a welcome intrusion to the Highland way of life, so the king sent soldiers to watch over the work, just in case there was any trouble. The Highlanders did their best to keep out of the way of these unwelcome strangers. One day, Ian was out tending his herd when he heard a voice call out to him. It was one of the English officers. "Good day to you," said the officer. "My son Christopher and I are looking for lodgings, and I've been told that you have an excellent home with a room to spare. I have the power to take your house from you, but I would much rather stay with you as a friend. I beg of you, please invite my son too." Ian was a good judge of character and took an instant liking to the man. "It would be my honour to have you both as my guests," he said. The officer realised he hadn't properly introduced himself and said, "I'm Harry," whilst wildly shaking Ian's hand. That night, Harry and Christopher arrived at Ian's door. They thanked him for his hospitality and asked to be treated as one of the family, making sure Ian knew they would help around the house and follow his rules. As Harry and Christopher sat down for dinner, they could not keep their eyes off the strange lady at the table who spoke a mixture of Gaelic and English. They seemed very anxious to question her, but were too polite to speak. Harry and Christopher retired to the room, and the boy stared wistfully out of the window. Harry looked at his son and said, "What's the matter, Christopher? I can see something's troubling you." He replied, "Seeing that lady at the table breaks my heart. I can't get over how much she reminds me of my lost mother. So many memories of my childhood, all the things I didn't realise were still there, tucked away in my head and heart." Harry's face looked pained. He said, "I understand. She is so like my Nell that she could be her twin sister, but she didn't have a sister. I miss her too." With a sadness in his eyes, the boy said, "I know, it's so long ago, but you've never told me what happened to Mum." Hearing those words, Harry realised that Christopher was old enough to know. He took a breath and began. Your mother enjoyed being out in the night air. She loved to walk along the banks of the river by moonlight, listening to the sounds of the water. The last night I saw her, she was on one of her walks. There was a sudden, terrible storm, and your mother never came home. I ran out to look for her when I realized she'd be gone too long, but the banks of the river had burst. I couldn't find her. I searched for days and days, but I never saw her again. The two sat in silence for a while. Then Christopher said he needed some air. Harry and Christopher left the house. They walked quietly for a short while. Then Harry started to talk about his wife. Nell, my poor Nell, he said. The lady who looked like Nell was sitting outside the house and overheard him. She looked at Harry and repeated, Nell, my poor Nell. This was too much for Harry, and he rushed straight to her side. He looked so distraught, and he asked, Are you my sweet Nell? The words washed over the lady's mind like the sea cleansing the shore, and a strange look passed over her face. She cried, Yes, Harry, yes, yes. Nell turned round and cuddled her son. She started to weep. Oh, my little Christopher, I've missed you so much. Where am I? How did I get here? It's as though I've been in a dream. Ian came out of the house to see what the commotion was. A smile crossed his lips when he saw how happy the three were. They asked him how Nell had ended up as his guest. Ian told them of the fairy company and how he'd rescued the lady, then made her welcome in his home. Nell, Harry and Christopher could not thank Ian enough. By the time they went back into the house, everyone was now awake. In truth, they celebrated the happy reunion until the break of dawn. Nell, Harry and Christopher stayed as guests for a few weeks, then returned to their own home. Before they left, they offered Ian a princely sum for all he had done. He refused to accept any reward, saying, Knowing I have brought you so much happiness is great enough a reward for me. Nell, Harry and Christopher made up for lost time and lived a very happy life. Ian and his family already knew happiness. Such is the tale told of the generous Ian Roy of Abernethy.